Thank you for auditing the always positive new music review show hosted by a French professor who's going to be reviewing the new album YtilaeR by Bill Callahan. Of course, it's not actually called YtilaeR, it's called Reality, but written backwards. And I think this is an album that actually should have been called Duality. I think at the heart of this album is a certain kind of duality, but not like, A versus B or apples versus bananas, or, it's not like a question of like opposing opposites, but more like dualities within one person, unified in the person of Bill Callahan. And I think that's even seen in the cover, even implied sort of the duality of looking in the mirror, of seeing the word reality and seeing the word reality backwards. I think everything in this album can come down to its first lyrics. We're coming out of dreams and coming back to dreams, which I'm going to explain more. And I think that's what gives this album its strength. This kind of ineffable quality, this sense that you're seeing something and you're seeing its reverse at the same time. And then what we're seeing is a really full picture of a man who's really been through a lot. Now, I have a long history with Bill Callahan. I've done a few videos on his music before. At times when I was younger, I used to think of him sort of as like an Xer Jim Morrison, kind of like a messianic, almost shamanistic figure. But, like a Gen X version. So instead of talking about peace and love, it was talking about self-hatred and generational trauma. Of course, I think that downplays Bill Callahan's greatness. But more and more, I realize he is Generation X's Neil Young. I really think it is, because that kind of duality is actually seen very much in Neil Young's music as well. Let me give you an example. If you take an album like Tonight's the Night, a desolate ode to death and addiction and substance abuse and tiredness, and then you compare it to one of his more popular albums from the 90s, Harvest Moon. I lost my copy of Harvest Moon. Instead, I will feature frankly, a better and less overplayed acoustic album from Neil Young, Silver and Gold, very similar thematically. On the one hand, you have his 70s output, which is often marked by this deep sense of isolation and loneliness, and he's able to speak to isolated and lonely people in a way that very few people can. I was describing Neil Young, by the way. You might have thought I was describing Bill Callahan. And then later on in the 90s, when he's in his 40s and his 50s, he's able to talk about his life with his then wife and his kids and how he's become a kind of happy family man. I think that Tonight's the Night, Harvest Moon dichotomy that we see in Neil Young's oeuvre is also what we see in Bill Callahan. No longer is he Travis Bickle doing push-ups in a hotel room. No longer is he the ex-con, wearing a suit and casing the joint. He's a happy man who has fought really hard to be the shepherd. He has fought really hard against his demons and against these generational traumas. Alongside this, in this album, he has basically a menagerie of different animals that represent different things. He talks a lot about nature, which I think feeds into this general feeling of contentedness and happiness. This is a very rural album, not really like a city album, where a lot of his early music I think really felt very city-like. Before I go on, I should talk about this channel's history with Bill Callahan. My video on Bill Callahan's Shepherd in a Sheepskin Vest from 2019 was my 136th video, and it was my most viewed video for a long time. It now currently sits at 1,700 views. It is my 275th most popular video, so I've come a long way. But it was covering that music, it was covering that album that I realized people did want me to speak more at length. They did want me to bring in my personal stories. And the thing is that I feel a deep connection to Bill Callahan. I cover a lot of underground hip-hop music, and I cover a lot of like 20-year-olds post-punk music, and I love it. I love talking about it. I love covering it. I think it's important to see the world through other people's experiences. That's how you build empathy. That's how you build a better view of the world. But when I want to listen to somebody who I really relate to, who I feel like working through generational trauma, working through feelings of isolation, Bill Callahan's my guy. In the same way that Neil Young was my guy. I feel I really relate. And when I covered that album, Shepherd in a Sheepskin Vest, I really hope I'm I think that's the name. It's a long title. I believe that's it. My first video that did well, I talked about how it made me cry. But what I love is that this new album, Reality Backwards, it made me cry as well, but for a totally different reason. Shepherd in a Sheepskin Vest is very much about the process of confronting and overcoming the generational trauma. Seeing the way as a new parent, it is waiting for you at the gate. It is at your door. It is ready to knock down the door and turn you into the person that you swore you'd never become. And it's Halloween season, okay? It's Michael Myers outside the window. You see him in the reflection right behind you. The knife is you feel the scrape of the knife against your back. That's what that whole album feels like, and I could really relate to it as I have tried in my life to be a good father and a good man and overcome the things in my life that might have made me not a good father and not a good man. This album is on the other side. Hey, hi past me from 2019. That was a good video. How are you doing? Oh, you married her? Awesome. And now the two of you are raising your kids together? Oh my God. And you have a baby? Well, hello, 2019 Sky. See, the 2019 Sky, much like the 2019 Bill Callahan, wasn't quite sure if I was going to make it through. Things looked good. I was on the right path. I was in therapy. I was addressing all these issues. But I didn't know if I was really going to make it. This album, and I understand I might be pissing you off so much because I'm talking so much about myself and I'm supposed to be a review channel, but I can't help it. I am what I am. That's a Popeye joke. Because he talks a lot about the captain. He has a lot of sea themes on Shepherd and Sheepskin Vest. That's a bad joke. When I described this album to my wife, she just goes, oh wow, so you're meeting him on the other side. And that's what it is. This album makes me cry. Smog has made me cry my entire life. When Smog sang to me about feeling like Prince alone in the studio, I attached myself to that and I felt that sense of loneliness and desolation. You know, like on that album Knock Knock, which came out, just a little bit after Red Apple Falls, and when he's singing about like the father breaking the gate and nobody saying a thing and just the sense of fear and cowering, I related to that. I related to fighting off Michael Myers outside my door. And now I cry out of happiness. This man has figured out how to love his kids, how to love his wife, how to love his life. And it doesn't feel like he has a tenuous grasp. He's in silver and gold mode. He is in harvest moon mode. So let me give you an example. With the first track off the album, First Bird. You can click above the red apples, which have not fallen, and above the banana, above the bananas, above the bananas. The opening track, First Bird. First of all, I'm just going to take you through the soundscape of this song. So I like to pick one song and really go into depth on it. I try to pick an exemplary song. It's nice when it's the first song. That makes things easier. And definitely this song sets the template musically and lyrically for the rest of the album. Starts off with a gentle guitar, not even entirely cleanly played, So if it's totally clean, it's, but it's sort of like there's a little roughness to it, which kind of plays through. There's these ghostly sounds in the back, and then there's a pause. And then eventually it builds up with more guitars, playing some kind of jazzy chords, so many different layers of guitars. A bass line starts playing, the guitar starts playing a bass line leading up to a chord, and then the thesis of the album, and we are coming out of dreams, and we are coming back to dreams, which I'll get back to soon. He sings with so much emphasis and soul. It sounds like maybe there's an oboe in the back or a clarinet. I don't know, some kind of woodwind instrument. And then eventually the drums come in. This album does a great job of layering. Almost every song starts off the same with some kind of guitar that's played soulfully, not necessarily with absolute precision, which I like. And then eventually other instruments coming in, then eventually drums coming in. Some female voices in the back at times. There's a sort of like wandering about part in the post-chorus with some like electric guitar, even feedback. At a certain point, the melody is played alongside the electric guitar. Then this female voice, just all these layers. At times, there's these crescendos that get built up to underneath with these guitar leads going here and there. Sort of a lazy outro bridge thing with these two chords back and forth, just going all over the place, building a very nice, intimate soundscape. That is at times perhaps a little lazy, which I'll get into later, but better lazy than overwrought, you know. And he addresses that on the album too. He talks about the simplicity of his writing on the album quite a bit, actually. So let's talk about the lyrics. The lyrics that I didn't just cry. I bawled like a baby. And I was on the elliptical, okay? I was at the YMCA. I was going to swear. In my notes, I wrote down a swear, but it autocorrected. So I am crying at the ducking YMCA. And I can't help it. Because, first of all, just the sense of this lyric, we are coming out of dreams and we are coming back to dreams. Just stop the presses. Just everybody put down your pens and just say, lyrics do not get better than that. It's painfully simple. Painfully simple. He's rhyming the same word with the same word. He's basically saying the exact same thing with just one sense change, but it's that real poetic skill. We are coming out of dreams and we are coming back to dreams. I think this is partially a post-COVID song where he's talking about the fact that we are coming out of dreams and coming back to dreams, but also like, what are dreams? What do they represent? What does it represent to him? Like, how we're awoken by this bird that's singing, and it seems to me that what he's saying is that he's coming out of dreams and then he's coming into dreams, and I think he's actually talking about the dream that is his life, that he's waking up to something nice. Now, on this theme, this album, like a boll weevil, went directly into my brain. And this is going to sound fake, okay? Please feel, oh, damn it. Smash the like bucket. Do that thing, please. I want to get more views on this video than I would normally get. And if you smash the like bucket, I am more likely to get more views because YouTube likes me more. And leave a comment. Tell me, Sky, I'm calling BS on this story, but it's true. It happened. I had a dream last night that I was standing in my kitchen, okay? My kitchen, right in there. And my wife was standing in front of me, in front of the sink, and she was wearing a wrap with our newborn baby on her chest. And I just started crying. I was just crying. She's like, what's wrong? And nothing was wrong. I was just so happy. I said, all of our children are in the same place. They're all under the same roof, and we're all together. I could not be happier. And then I woke up. And what was my reality? That kitchen's over there. All three of my kids are underneath my roof. I see them. I watch them grow. Like, I came from a dream into a dream. I don't believe me either. I don't. I'm going to put a comment on my own video. I'm going to sign into my spam account, and I am going to leave a comment on this video I call BS. I don't know what to tell you, bud. This actually happened to me. And it's the strength of this one lyric. And we are coming out of dreams and we are coming back to dreams. That is then followed by the way that he describes his family life. Shadow of my boy coming down the hall. So I'm like 10 years younger than him, but I'm sort of more advanced and less advanced in terms of fatherhood. You know, so I have two teenagers and a newborn. So all over the place there. But this image of a shadow of a boy coming down the hall. And you think that this is what's going to get me to cry because I'm thinking about my son and the fact that he's going off to college next year? No. And his little sister's hand is deep in his palm. Okay, so now I'm simultaneously remembering when my son was a little boy taking care of his little sister, and now both of my teenage kids have this baby, and her feet don't ever touch the ground. because everybody wants to carry her around? This guy knew exactly how to illustrate my alienation and sadness. He could spin tales of sadness and loneliness better than Morrissey, better than anybody, truly, better than Tom York, whatever depressing singer you're thinking of. Bill Callahan as Smaug was better. But we have a new king of family happiness right here. This line with the hand buried in the palm and never touches the ground because everyone wants to carry her around, and I'm thinking about my actual baby, which is true. Like, my kids fight over who gets to hold her, who gets to carry her. We're coming out of dreams. And then, talking about how the boy's shadow grows tall, which implies that he's growing up, and again tying into the idea of my kids eventually getting off and going off to college. It's just beautiful. It's just beautiful. And it's this duality that is in his catalog that I think makes him so great. That the sadness and the loneliness were real, and they were hard fought. And the happiness and contentedness are real, and they were hard fought. And in his voice, you still hear the pain, and we'll hear the scars still come through. But they can just both exist in this voice that has gone on this journey together. Okay, next song. I'm going to go through the rest of the album a lot quicker. Every Way, again, more strummed guitar, kind of roughly strummed. He's very far away from his sort of chugging guitars of his youth. I Feel Something Coming On, a disease or a song. Again, there's a couple songs on this album that are about making music. Here we start to get some darker imagery, warmed hands on the corpse of a horse. He's talking about Assateague Island, where there are still wild horses. I think I really like about this is the way that he develops the drum line, and it's kind of behind everything else. And there's sort of like an outro that's announced with a slightly military drum line. And again, we're really dealing with this duality here, where later we're going to have a horse that's alive and walking around, and here we have a horse's corpse, a horse corpse. Maybe they're doing horse fighting. Why would you be warming your hands on a horse corpse? But then also, like, he just slips in little lines, like talking about the captain being gone. I think this is a reference to this sort of mythical sailor character that seems to taunt him and punish him. Might be his father, might be the part of his father that's inside of himself. It's hard to tell. Next song is called Boll Weevil, kind of a rumbling western song. You sort of imagine it like I don't know, like like Tex Ritter, or sort of like Riders of the who am I thinking of? Not Riders of the New Purple Sage. Like those Western guys, that like sing the songs with the chorus, like Boll Weevil. You could sort of imagine it like that. Why am I not remembering the guy who wrote Yonder Comes a Sucker? That guy. Tell me in the comments. Jim Reeves. Nailed it. That kind of cool old Western country sound. I don't like the lyric. Okay. All right. Okay. I don't know if this album is supposed to be political. And if this song is political, I don't know if the song is supposed to be satirical or not. But writing about a ugly bug that comes up through Texas and makes a home in your land sounds to me like it could be a far-right xenophobic thing about, like, demonizing and dehumanizing immigrants, many of whom come through Texas. Or is this like a comment on that kind of thinking? Or is this actually a song about boll weevils, which is also possible? I mean, this guy likes singing about animals and bugs. A goat and a monkey, a mule and a flea. That's one of my favorite lyrics of his. Very loud and exciting at the end. What's cool, the next song, Partition, kind of builds up on. And tell me in the comments, what do you think, by the way? Like, is my reading of boll weevil, like, dear God, don't tell me that like he's like become some super right-wing nut or something. I've had a rough week with that, with my artistic heroes. Talking to Tucker Carlson. I will say I've talked about this previously. If you can, you need to find. Speaking of right wing puppets of Tucker Carlson, Adam Carolla, who I actually really appreciate and think is a genius, despite the fact I dislike where he's gone politically. Adam Carolla once interviewed Bill Callahan, and it was so funny because Bill Callahan had no idea Adam Carolla's shtick at all. Like, didn't get it at all. Like, he has a whole like, it was the most awkward, non-working interview of two people who I sincerely look up to, even if one of them is kind of in disgrace right now. Interesting. Anyways, the next song, Partition, builds off the previous one. Acoustic guitar, kind of like a low saxophone. Again, it's kind of pulsing Western rhythms. Maybe the catchiest song, we're just saying over and over again, do what you've got to do. Again, it seems like this might be sort of political, but maybe on the other side. Big pigs in a pile of ish and bones. What I like about this is that when he's talking about do what you got to do, and he gives these examples, like, again, sort of like jazzy, almost Riders on the Storm feel here. Meditate or microdose or change your clothes. I think he's talking about people who are looking for freedom, like do what you want to do sounds like it's a statement of freedom, but it actually seems like the people who he's talking about are sort of enslaved. Like, they're trying to find a way out, but they're not really there. Nice kind of organ at the end with the drummer doing drum exercises. Lily has this beautiful guitar and voice in unison. I started writing your death song before you were gorn. Before you were gorn. The weird green guy that fought Captain Kirk. Before you were gone. So it's a death song. I assume it's about his mother dying. I don't know. His mother's been a pretty shadowy figure in his music, as far as I know. The trees that protect the fog when mother is gone. So I think that's what it is. Again, more kind of militaristic snare drum playing. It talks about like how you taught me middle C, so the idea this person taught him music, and how you wept inside, crying like a cold apple cries. So I don't know. I mean, not only does Bill Callahan have a very lively menagerie of different animals, he also has a produce section. and central among those is apples. I don't know. Thinking of his mom as a cold apple? Actually, I get it. I poetically get it. The song is meaningful, kind of cheesy, to be honest. Kind of cheesy. Which I am 100% in favor of. You've done your time being the bitter, disaffected voice of angry young men. You want to sing a cheesy song, holding the elevator for your soul with angelic voices in the back, with stops and starts all the way throughout, which serve as extended and repeated moments of silence for your dead mom. I'm totally with it. The medium said you were sticking around halfway to make sure my boy was okay. Oops, he did it again. Bill Callahan made me cry. Viewers of this channel will know that my mom died in 2016, and I'm totally not over it. And having a baby, you're like, oh, I'm having a baby that my mother will never see. As long as I don't think about it, it doesn't make me sad, but I think about it too much. So this idea of like consulting a medium to make sure to look over these children, it's fanciful. I don't think he actually believes it. I don't think he believes in mediums. But interestingly, speaking of menageries, my mom loved crows, and I'm not a superstitious guy. I believe in God, but my concept of God is mystic. But whenever I see a crow, I talk to it. I don't care. You see me on the street, you see a crow, I will tell the crow how my baby's doing. I don't care. I get it. The crow has no mystical connection to the afterlife, that the crow's not flying up to heaven and having a little conversation with my mom like I think that it is, but I don't care. I'm going to do it because it brings me peace and brings me solace and helps me to be a better dad and a better person. That's what Bill Callahan did. Next song is called Naked Souls. Again, I can't quite tell if this is a political song or not. Cool kind of like acoustic electric guitar interaction. Really, the guitar interaction between the acoustic and the electric really does remind me of 90s era Neil Young, like Silver and Gold or like Harvest Moon. piano tinkling. Eventually, the drums are being played with brushes. Again, very sort of Harvest Moon made. Is he moralizing about middle America? An old man goes to buy another gun to become a policeman or kill one? Like, is that what this is? Is this about, like, the state of America? Like, what's he talking about when he's talking about naked souls? I don't think there's a political statement to this album. There might be a general statement about the political state, about the divisiveness. I don't know. I do love his turns of phrase on this song, though. You'd be stress eating in a dinner. You'd be stress eating in a diner in Dallas, too. It's funny. And the way he says these words, like a gator in the glades. Speaking of babies, a little cameo up there. These horns come in and at first I didn't like this song that much, but then as these horns come in, they're sort of jazzy, insane, almost like Radiohead's Life in a Glass House, like that kind of just brassy, wild horns in the back. Gotta destroy these naked souls. I don't know what he means. I think I need to sit with it more. I'm totally open to your interpretation of what does he mean by naked souls. Next song is called Coyotes. This one I think I get. He has kind of a hammer-on acoustic guitar line, like if I chord, that kind of but it's a very resolving set of chords. It's just very resolving, very comfortable, these chords. Very Harvest Moon. And as far as I can tell, this is adding to his menagerie about loving a woman forever, right? So if you love a woman forever, it means that you're going to love her when she is a certain age, and then you're going to love her when she is an age past that. Moreover, you are going to be a certain age, and then you are going to be older. So as far as I can tell, the song starts off, yes, I am your lover man, this cool kind of silky guitar, and then there's these whole themes of a coyote, like coyotes watching dogs sleep. And that the idea, I think, is that when you're a young lover, you're a coyote, kind of vicious, sort of energetic and youthful, but when you're older, you sleep more. This morning I helped my wife sleep an extra 3 hours because I took the baby on my chest and the baby Bjorn and slept, and that's that's like the equivalent of a Barry White song. That's the sexiest, most loving thing you could possibly do. And if you're young and you're watching this and you think, I'll never think that, dude, you just don't get it. I mean, sex is great, but helping each other sleep, underrated. Totally underrated. Jesus Christ, I'm way out over my skis on this one. Anyways, but I think that's what this is about. And I think it's sort of a sweet admission to aging, an acknowledgement that, when you're 56, you're not going to have the same sexual drive or performance as you did when you were 25, and that you're no longer a coyote, but what you have is better. Very poetic. They say never wake a dreamer. Maybe that's how we die. I realize now that dreams are real. Going back to this general theme, going back to me last night having this dream, realizing the dreams are real. We should all be so lucky as to be coyotes in our youth and sleeping dogs in our adulthood. Drain Face is the next song. Weird title. More acoustic electric guitar interface, the most poetic lyrics. The man that made the god that made birth painful, for our womanly sins with eyes like retired hotel bedspreads, done. I think this is just a song about watching your wife give birth, which is awesome. Please, more songs about that. More songs about childbirth. We need more songs about childbirth. It's actually weird. A lot of people don't know this. Every human being on Earth that's ever existed was born, You'd think that there'd be more songs about the act of giving birth or watching someone giving birth than there are about much more obscure things like being a rock and roll star who sleeps with a lot of groupies. I could name 30 songs off the top of my head about sleeping with groupies. Songs about being born or watching birth, I can't quite tell here. I like this. There's this kind of stop and start plays. It's very low note played emphatically. The end of this album is a little bit looser, and I think it's a little bit looser for the reason that it's going to be better live. These great piano punctuating notes, kind of a heartbeat sound at the end. And then we get to the most jammy jam song of all time, Natural Information. Now, my most recent video about, yes, Bo, I'm talking about dreams. Sorry, my dog's coming over here. You go lay in the sun. It would have been, could you have been there like before when I could have showed you sleeping? Look at this guy. Look at him. He could have just been sleeping there, and that would have been like a perfect metaphor for the song. Leave a comment if you want me to give Bo a pat. I will. So, I just did this video on King Gizzard where I talked about them as a jam band. And wow, man, jam band fans are uptight. I thought you guys were supposed to be chill. I thought you lived a life of leisure, sleeping in parking lots and watching a bunch of middle-aged dudes play lots of notes. I guess not. But this is a jam band song, and I don't care if you don't like me saying that. A very upbeat guitar line, like major notes of a scale. And he sings, even the way he sings kind of reminds me of Jerry Garcia. And it's singing, man, about like this natural information, man. We're all like caught up in this data, but like there's so much data when you just like look at a butterfly, man. I don't know. But did he get me to cry again? What do you think? What do you think? What do you think? I'm sitting there at the YMCA? Of course he did. Strolling my baby down the street, all I see is little feet, but she sleeps. I dream natural information. You got me again, Mr. Callahan. I love your break parts and I love your music. It's a nutty, cruddy, crunchy, hippie song, but the natural information of seeing your family, seeing your kids is right there. He talks about how I wrote this song in 5 minutes, and that really does come through. The song feels a little bit half-cooked. He says he's writing it in recovery slides. So, there are every once in a while those little indications that he's overcoming his addictions. Great jammy pockets in the song, like pockets where there can be a jam. There's like a double Allman Brothers guitar style, how they play like two guitars playing the same notes. And then you hear his boy's voice in the back. Boy's voice. He's sort of like your sober friend or favorite music reviewer who just never shuts up about how happy he is. That's what Bill Callahan and I are we're in the same lane, baby. It's great. Hey, you know what's great? Being happy. Let me tell you about it. Next song is called The Horse. Not as happy. Multiple guitars again. All about these horses walking through the front door. I don't think it's about heroin because, heroin, usually if you hear someone singing about a horse, back in the saddle again or wild horses, whatever, it's usually about heroin. I don't think that's what this is. The mute kind of simplicity in here is kind of a snoozer. An interesting end line, rule of thumb, bow before all, before none. I'll think about that. It's again going back to this concept, this duality that's throughout this album. Reality and the inverse of reality, the dreams and the dreams, that like you should bow before all and bow before none. Like I understand this. Like you should totally submit to everything because you should hold yourself superior to nothing. But at the same time, you shouldn't bow and give in to everything and you should maintain your individuality. It's a complicated duality that Bill Callahan's putting forth here. Next song is called Planets. Probably the weakest point on the album. I don't know, it's fine. This super low bass voice and talking about laying on a rock and whispering strings and it's like a Hawaiian sound. I just get the sense that he went to Hawaii with his family with this song. It doesn't quite get started. The final track is called Last One at the Party, which is led by drums. Basically the first song, it's not led by an acoustic guitar. Very heavy, boomy bass drum, eventually some guitar. There's two ways to read the song. One is that it's about throwing a party and some guy just doesn't leave. And like, we've all had that guy. We've all been, I am that. I'm the guy who arrives early at parties. You need help vacuuming? That's me. Like, I can't help it. I'm a prompt dude. But, you've all had the dinner parties where the person doesn't leave. And I feel that he's a middle-aged guy. He's with his wife, he's with his family, he has these little parties, and hey, you want to write a song about the last guy at the party, which makes me think there's some dude who like went to a party at Bill Callahan's house who's like, oh, that might be about me. Or it's a political song, I don't know, about someone who's unwilling to let go of, say, an election that was lost. Or it's a spiritual song about somebody who refuses to die, keeps on holding on to life, kept saying he had to go, but then thought he'd never leave. You know, maybe the party is life. Maybe it's him holding on through his depression. Did I say there's 2 things you could say about this and there's actually 3? I don't know. The songwriting is at its laziest here. It's just 2 chords back and forth, but a lot of great Smog songs are 2 chords back and forth. So it's a great album. I really enjoy it. I love hearing it. I think there needs to be more songs written from this perspective. These are my Patreons. They give me money, which allows me to buy music. And actually, I'm starting to put some of the Patreon money into a college fund for that baby. So if that convinces you to give me money, that might be good. But just thanks to all these people. I got 80 Patreons now. That's like bizarre. 80 people giving me money to do something you could do for free. It's wild. They got to see this video a day early, though. I do that sometimes. Well, okay. Thank you so much. Enjoy Smog. Listen to Silver and Gold if you've never heard it. Neil Young's catalog is so great. Until next time, there's the camera.